If you were in the GATE program, you were in the top 5%. But what does that mean now? Why were we chosen for this program? What were they teaching us? What were they training us for? Today I want to investigate several different theories that I've come up with while I've been looking into the GATE program and thinking back on memories that I've had. So one of the things I noticed that a lot of GATE children have in common is that they have some experience with ESP in early childhood. So whether that's flying, astral traveling, sleepwalking, connection with ETs, premonition, waking up in bathtubs is another weird one. But whatever it is, they usually have some kind of sixth sense, which quite very well probably contributes to the fact that they've tested in the top 5% of their peers. Now, I'm not 100% certain on this because I was looking into what qualifies a gifted child and what the curriculum was, and I couldn't find it for the 90s. But what I did find at my personal elementary school that is still running a GATE program, I found that the qualifications for a gifted program at my elementary school was that they tested in the top 5% on standardized testing, and then they also showed some kind of also showed some kind of outstanding ability in the creative or performing arts. So what's interesting about that is that upon looking further into the GATE program and talking to real people who have had real experiences in the gifted program between the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, is that there often seems to be two groups of us. One group seemed to be more logical or more gifted in mathematics and science and more left brain stuff. And perhaps those people were recruited for CIA, military. I've heard a lot of people mention Mensa, even though I don't really know what Mensa is. Other than that, it sounds like something that is for really smart people, right? So obviously that wasn't me. But group two seems to be the people who had some kind of substance abuse issues when they grew up or were diagnosed as neurodivergent at some point. So were those people being ushered onto another path? Because when I think about my own personal struggles growing up, being told that I was gifted, I was special, we were taken out of class and told how special we were. We were watching videos like Free the Horses, which was training us to be a leader. We were doing studies in our social studies classes where we were literally creating new governments and new societies. So if you look at what's going on in the world right now, you look at, the top 5% of children in classes that were taken out into small groups, not to mention part two of what I found when I was looking into when I was doing research into my own personal elementary school, and I found out that the other thing that was special about the gifted program is that gifted kids had personalized lesson plans. And then on the forms that they gave our parents to sign, the forms also said, the forms are what gave the school permission to run extra tests on us as gifted children. But nowhere in the forms on the state of Ohio education website or anywhere else, now granted, maybe I wasn't looking in the right places, but I didn't find anywhere in those documents that said what kind of tests they would be running. I saw no mention of gateway tapes or hearing tests or audio tests or anything like that. No mention of pink liquid or drinks or anything like that either. All I saw was something very general like, congratulations, your child has been, shown outstanding academic ability, and we would like to run more tests on them to see if they qualify as gifted. Do you give us permission to run tests on your children? With no information about what tests. So now I'm going to open it up to you guys. Do you guys have any idea what they were testing us on? Do you have any idea what the curriculum looked like in the 80s and the 90s and 70s? Does it look like that, which is what they're doing today, where they have individualized lesson plans for the kids when they have, need permission to run additional tests, but they're not telling us what tests? I would love to know if you have any additional research. And here's a hack for GATE kids too. You know, go Google your old elementary school or the school that you attended the GATE program at. See what their curriculum is. It might joggle some memories. I also found pictures of the gifted program in my elementary where they had pictures of kids building stuff and working on projects, and the gifted fair. I think I saw a Scholastic book fair in there. So that was interesting. But yeah, so what does all that mean now? Well, I'm just going to tell you from, you know, my humble position as somebody who was in the gifted program who grew up to be an astrologer, human design teacher, and a remote viewing tarot reader. And what I see as being the reason for that, you know, when you're looking at things from an astrology standpoint, wow, there is a giant bone right here. Look at this. I usually collect bones. Dang, I usually collect bones in the desert. But, oh my God, another animal sacrifice. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is cool. Should I explore it? You know, I can't. Oh, wow. Welcome to my walk with me. Oh my God, and there's the fur. I'm sorry. You didn't know you were gonna get this today, did you? Yikes. Huh. Okay, well, as I was saying, you're talking about, what does it mean now? Right? Why did they take the top 5% of people, children, and why did they hold them in a special gifted education class from the time, usually before 3, because many of us were in pre-gifted programs before we went to elementary school, because we were walking, talking, speaking way earlier than anyone. So often physicians would be the ones to recommend that we go to see a psychiatrist for early testing. And then I think there were probably some early gifted programs for pre-K, right? But then between the ages of 6 or 5 or 6 when you go to kindergarten, and then until about 12, till you enter junior high. And at least in my case, the program stopped then. They didn't stop, but they changed to now you're in AP or accelerated classes versus what they called the gifted program from kindergarten through 5th and 6th grade. So, what does that all mean? Between the ages of 0 and 7, your brain is extremely moldable because you're in delta and theta brain waves. And then from 7, I think 7 to 12 or 8 to 12, you're in alpha. And alpha is still a lightly programmable state. It's what you go into when you're trying to do, I believe, I might be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's what you go into when you're doing subliminals. You're reprogramming your, you know, financial beliefs or abundance beliefs or whatever. But so I just find that timeline interesting, that they kind of stop with the individualized gifted programs until you're 12, when you're no longer a super absorbent sponge, because by the time you're 12, you're kind of like already programmed. So what we did in those formative years were extremely important. And I talked about in many other videos how, you know, part of the curriculum was, at least in the 90s, and is that you were in the computer lab, you were playing games like Oregon Trail and probably some other games. There are shows like Carmen, Sandiego. I don't really remember much about that show other than I liked it. And I don't remember if it was a game or a show, actually. So do you guys remember about Carmen Sandiego? What was that about? I don't remember. But Oregon Trail was a pretty stressful game because you would have to survive the Oregon Trail. And there were all these bad worst case scenario things that could happen, like drowning, or you got an injury that couldn't be healed, or you got dysentery, or, you know, one of many bad things that could have happened, right? So that, you know, even though we weren't really there, your brain doesn't recognize, sorry, it's loud, there's some bugs over here. Your brain doesn't recognize, your brain does not recognize, let me go over here on this trail. Your brain doesn't recognize the difference between reliving trauma and then actually being there. Or in other words, you may be thinking about trauma that you've had in the past, but your body is experiencing that trauma like it's actually there. So what's the effect on people when they're playing those kind of stressful games? Your nervous system is literally being trained how to be stressed out. And it's starting to learn how to operate in those systems. So, you know, the fact that that was a groundbreaking game for educators, you know, taught us a lot about the Oregon Trail in those times. But why? Why? And why were we being asked to make new governments around the same time, same age, when we were really young? Why were we, in some cases, if not all, listening to the gateway tapes? Why were we taking naps with our heads touching? Why were we doing guided meditation? Were they helping us tap into something that we already had inside of us, and they were just helping us to develop those skills? Were the top 5% an experiment, to experiment in consciousness to see if humans or children could not be victim of the mass programming that's happening? Could we have been trained to be psychic spies, or to work in the military, or some other kind of intelligence agency? I don't know. Sorry, it's so hot out here, guys. It's like 100 something degrees, but yeah, I just wanted to jump on here and make a quick video and ask some bigger questions. The other quick thing I want to touch on is the astrology of this time, which I find rather interesting, especially with the outer planets, because in astrology, the outer planets are super important because it's generational energy. So generational energy is the bigger planets, the outer planets, which only shift every couple of decades. I think Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto, and Neptune, the fact that they're all switching within 5 or 6 years is huge, because all of our generational energies as a society are changing. Saturn is old structures and top-down systems and corporations just being dismantled. Neptune is the one that does the dismantling. Neptune is the last sign of the zodiac. It's the start of a new zodiac year. And Neptune is going into Aries, which is a reset. Saturn just moved from Pisces, which is whose ruler is Neptune, and then it just moved into Aries too. So that's another reset with the outer planets. And then Saturn being in the top-down systems, like I was saying. But Aries is also about leadership. So what I wanted to leave you with, if you've ever been into astrology, maybe you know your basic sun sign, maybe your moon sign, your rising sign, all that stuff. Have you ever looked into your transits? This is what I teach when I do one-on-one sessions with people. Transits are really important. They show the evolution of your soul and how you're processing, what you're processing now in real time, not just what you were born with. So when you're looking at the transits, you're seeing where you're being called into leadership right now, especially at this really important time when all these planets are changing and society is literally changing. Pluto went from Capricorn top-down systems to Aquarius, which is the higher mind and technology. And now we're seeing all this stuff happening with AI. All that stuff happened around the time that Pluto changed signs into Aquarius a handful of years ago. So we're already just getting a taste of the future, which is AI, a lot of these top-down systems dismantling, a lot of homestead things popping up, and a lot of people, especially gifted people, especially spiritually in touch people, there's a reason that a lot of those people are leaning towards homestead lifestyles and, you know, self-sufficiency, off-grid living, etc. So it's like, do we know something's coming? Is this something that we were trained for? Or are we just seeing, you know, feeling in touch with the astrological energies? I was going to say entities. That might be a Freudian slip. But the other thing about the entities, let's go back to the fact that we all had, a lot of us had connections with ET experience, or early childhood abductions, or dreams that felt like they were real, where we were abducted or something. Now, what if those were real? What if we were part of some kind of alien hybrid program where they took the most gifted humans, and maybe we were gifted because we were implanted with something in our childhood? That's a super crazy fringe idea, but I mean, anything's possible, right? There's a lot of weird stuff that we've seen in this lifetime that we probably weren't expecting to see. So is it connection with ETs? I don't know. What do you guys think? But again, the last thing I wanted to leave you with, a tool that's practical, is to look at your astrology chart. Check out where you have 1 to 2 degrees of Saturn in your natal chart. What house is it? And then see where Saturn is at 1 or 2 degrees 1 or 2 degrees of Aries, see where Neptune is, because Saturn is where you're stepping up into leadership and Neptune is where you're dissolving old systems. And that will give you some insight into how you're supposed to lead others at this time. So yeah, that might be insightful for you. And if you don't know how to do that on your own, definitely reach out to me and sign up for my Gate Kids guide in my description. And that's where you can find my information for a reading. And if you're interested in a one-on-one session, that is where I can help you look into your astrology chart. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Am I onto anything? Do you guys feel the same way? Let me know.